By the 1220s, the Mongols had conquered much of Eurasia, a swath of land between the Pacific Ocean and the Caspian Sea was now the massive Mongol Empire. 800 years later, the Chicago expedition ponders the oceanic ruler. Maury Kravitz tries to get into his head, knowing he must understand the ruler if he is to figure out where he asked to be buried. Who was the real Genghis Khan? A bloodthirsty savage? Or as the Washington Post declared a few years back, the man of the millennium?
History, we often say, is written by the victors, but in fact with the Mongols, the history was written by the losers. So we only know Genghis Khan's life through the people whom he defeated. The Chinese, the Persians, the Arabs, the Russians, the Hungarians, the Germans.
Obviously, all of the people who were subject to these invasions paint them as unmitigated disasters. I mean, these people came and they were barbarians, they were savages, and they'd slaughtered wantonly. And I don't quite think that that's tenable if we look at what the Mongols themselves thought they were doing and what they ended up doing later on.
Genghis Khan destroyed cities throughout Central Asia for many reasons: punishment, propaganda, and ultimately, according to some scholars, commerce. As Genghis Khan's empire grew, so did his vision of a global economy.
He wanted to reorganize the entire trade system of the world, and many of the smaller cities were simply in the way. And it was just like building a freeway system. You have to get rid of some of the smaller ones. Now, sometimes historians look at that and say, oh, he was so ignorant, he didn't realize the trade potential. No, it was because he realized the trade potential and he wanted to divert that trade potential that he destroyed them.
He wanted foreign merchants to come into Mongolia. He also gave them tax-exempt status, and he invested in trade. He took much of his booty and plunder and would give it to merchants and then allow the merchants to trade.
With so much of Eurasia under the umbrella of Genghis Khan and his successors, goods and skills were able to flow freely between East and West for the first time ever.
That cross-cultural exchange was specifically organized and encouraged by the Mongols. They liked Islamic embroidered silk and gold clothing. So they took weavers of that kind of silk and gold clothing and moved them to China so that the Mongols in China could have them too. They also, though, liked Chinese ceramics, and so ceramics go the other way.
When he was born, every civilization was a regional civilization. But when he died, every civilization was now also a part of an emerging world civilization. The goods of China would forever be available in Europe. The goods of Europe would forever be available in China.
But free trade was just part of the plan. Genghis Khan gave the illiterate Mongols their first written language, and he established an international code of laws. Among those laws were ideas that seem progressive even today. He pioneered diplomatic immunity by ensuring that all envoys and emissaries were protected. And he instituted religious freedom throughout the empire.
Genghis Khan was very interested also in holy men of any religion, and he granted tax-exempt status to people of the four religions that he met at the time: Buddhism, Christianity, Taoism, and Islam.
Clearly, any time that there's large-scale conquest, and people are gonna die. But then, how quickly do people who carry this out, how quickly do they begin to assimilate to the folks who are there, begin to use their practice, begin to use their expertise? The Mongols do it right away. Genghis Khan in his own lifetime has Muslim advisors, he has Buddhist advisors, he has a lot of people who are advising him about how he should organize these areas that he takes in China and in Central Asia.
Under the guidance of such advisors, the Mongols gained appreciation for the value of cities. Those cities that surrendered to the Mongols often ultimately benefited and pledged their loyalty.
He killed everybody he fought if they resisted him in a very severe and upfront manner. He killed no one if the city or the target came out, sat down, and talked it over. He often would say, okay, I'll put a small unit of Mongol soldiers here with a governor, But you run your business and you run your government yourself. There will be a tax. We expect you to pay it at least once a year. And you'll be left alone to function as you did before. Many times, that tax, that Mongol tax, was less than they were paying their existing ruler.
The summer has not been productive so far. Lots of wonderful scenery and history, but the sights have been dry holes. And then, with the end of their season looming, because temperatures fall quickly to 50 degrees below zero, the expedition reaches its third site, where one of its members feels a connection. Mongolian geographer Dambin Bazagor insists they investigate a stone wall, which he firmly believes to have spiritual significance.
Ихстэй тахил гөргөх газар. Өөрөөр хэлбэл ихсийг онгоцсон газар. Энэ хэрмэн дотор Genghis Kahn Монголын том хаадуудын шарилын байгаалаа гэдгийг баталж чадна гэж бодож байна. Тэрч гарах.
But American members of the team are skeptical. They see merely a wall half a mile long, stretching along the bottom of a hill.
That's good enough.
They reluctantly surveyed the area, only to discover they judged too soon.
Sure enough, it turns out that there were some signs of human activity there, burial activity in that area that showed up both to the naked eye and in our instrumentation. And there they are again.
Yeah, it's unbelievable up there.
They decide to climb a hill to get a better look at the wall, and with every step, they become increasingly convinced that they have stumbled onto something entirely unique.
We were absolutely overcome with surprise and shock to discover that it wasn't simply a wall stretching across the bottom of this hill, but in fact it was a huge encircling enclosure. A massive kind of undertaking.
Right before their eyes, an intact barrier 2 miles around, surrounding cliffs that rise up sharply, like a throne.
The height of the wall at the top was something like 12 feet, maybe. At the bottom, it was like 8 feet, but really quite massive. And what popped in my mind immediately when I just saw this the rest of the structure was, what is this, and who would have had the necessary manpower to build something like this?
They now know for sure that they'll be back next summer. What they don't know is that they will uncover things no one has ever seen before.